Hey, back before we got this farm, we were raising goats, and we got the farm so that we could raise even more goats. And the next sort of logical extension after having goats was to get some sheep. Now, despite being Australian and loving lamb, I really don't know very much about sheep. And so my wife had found a Century farm across the valley with a breeder who had the sort of sheep that we wanted that were a good mix of sort of fibre sheep and meat sheep, multi-purpose sheep, I guess you could say. But I didn't know much about them, so I was kind of hanging around the back of the barn while my wife and the breeder were sort of going together and working out which sheep we wanted to get. While I don't know much about sheep, I sort of saw something that caught the corner of my eye in a pile of trash, rusty old steel that was sort of sitting outside the barn. And I sheepishly went to the husband of the, I can't believe I just made that pun. I went to the husband of the breeder and said, hey, would you mind if I took that? And he's like, yeah, I don't even know what it is. I don't really care. And it turned out what it was, well, more than just this bit. It was a Wilton bullet vise. I think this is a 3-inch jaw. I should know that. Yeah, 3-inch, so it's a small bullet vise. It was in far rougher shape than what you see here. It had been sitting outside for decades. Nothing moved on it, not even this bar, which, lever handle. That was even locked in place with rust. The jaws definitely weren't coming out. It was completely frozen in time and frozen with rust. And so the farmer had absolutely no problems sort of giving it to me. So I explained to him what it was, and we got chatting, and it turned out he, in addition to raising sheep, was an amateur astrophotographer, and he brought me inside, and I checked out his sort of Peltier-cooled CCD sensors and his Linux rig that he used for doing stacking and all this cool photography stuff. Taught me, don't judge a 70-year-old farmer by what they look like. He was pretty cool. But he was so cool, he let me keep this vise. And I've had this now for about a year, and I've been working on it on and off with some WD-40, the wire wheel on the angle grinder. I bought myself one of those cheapo Harbor Freight sandblasters to sandblast it, navel jelly, and I eventually got it to the state that you see it in here, whereby it's mainly broken down to its primary parts. So the jaw itself, I can get it in there, doesn't close completely. It binds up on the nut, I think that's in there. There's still a bit of rust in there that I've got to get out. Still a lot more surface rust I've got to deal with, but it's looking pretty good, well, compared to what it was. The other problem was this little collar here, which slips over the handle and attaches the handle to the moving jaw. The screws in there completely were rusted out, and I got one of them out, but the other one is sort of stuck in there, so I've got to clean that out. I'll see if I can find some photos and insert photos here of what it used to look like, because you've got to believe me, it was worse than this. What I want to do now is continue sort of cleaning this up. The thing that I was stuck on last time is, there's a bunch of restoration videos on YouTube about restoring these Wilton bullet vises. And so I've watched a lot of those. I think Keith Rucker has a really good series. I want to get the nut in here out. And I believe the way that it's held in there is there's 2 pins on either side. With the amount of rust that was on here, I couldn't really see where those pins were. But I think I've finally gotten enough rust through that I can see where one pin is on this side. So I'm going to try and drive that pin out. Try and do it by hand. If not, I might have to go and invest in getting a little arbor press or something, or some sort of press so I can press this out. But I'm hoping I can get this out, and that will then let me work out why the moving jaw doesn't go all the way in and give it a good clean. Then after that, I'll probably soak it in some Evaporust. I haven't tried that yet. I'll see if that does a better job getting off the rust. This thing is pretty severely pitted, but if I can get more rust off, that'll be great. Yeah, I don't know where I'm going to go with this. Hopefully I can get it back and functioning. And I think it'll be a nice addition to this little assembly bench setup that I've got going on here. So I'll bring you in closer and see if we can get this pin out. You missed all the excitement. I've driven this pin out. Yeah, so I think I forgot to press record, and in my excitement, I got it through. So what I found was a little divot back here. I was concerned that this wasn't actually the divot because I was working on this last year with a punch. I was worried that I was chasing my tail in that I was just making what looked like the pin mark using one of these pin punches. But no, this actually was it. And after soaking for a year in WD-40, I was able to drive the pin through, and then that then drives the pin out on the other side. And if I can get this all the way through, I'll have this out. I was really nervous about this. I'd put maybe 20 hours so far into restoring this or getting this to this point, and many of those hours, I've got to be really honest, were trying to get this pin out. I just thought, I was chasing my tail. I thought, there was no way it was going to come out. But you know what? A little bit of patience and some time, and it worked. And I've got the pins out. Well, there's one. If I had a slightly longer punch, I can get that first one out. Let's see if I can find something long enough and thin enough and hard enough. Long, thin and hard. Will I use a drill bit? Am I really going to use a drill bit for this? I think I'm going to use a drill bit. All right, I looked at my drill bits and like, what is the least useful drill bit? That is a tiny masonry bit. I'll be gentle. I'll use the mallet. There we go. It still needs a little bit more tappy tap. I'm worried now that this drill bit is going to be the next thing I need to remove, so I'm going to try and find a smaller diameter drill bit that I don't care about. All right, an even less useful drill bit, tiny masonry bit. There we go. All right, 2 pins out, drill bit removed. Let's see if we can get this nut out. Ooh, that's pretty gnarly. Is it meant to be that eccentric? Guess so. What's stamped on here? 1300? 1, 4. Probably part numbers. While I've got you in close, I don't know if you can see, but up in here there is a date code. 846. So this is from, is it August? Yeah, August 1946. This guy's a little bit older than I am. Actually, it's about as old as my dad. So I figured it would be a good time to test my theory as to that it was the nut that it was binding on. I'm not sure how I thought that made sense, but clearly wasn't the answer. That's pretty much as far as I can go with the bore completely empty. I think this piece looks clean. You can see all the machining marks. This is pretty good. I think there's just a large excess buildup of crud on the keyway in there. I don't know, how do I get you to see that? That's blocking it off. Maybe a good soak in evaporust is what this thing needs. I don't actually own any, so off to Amazon, buy a gallon of evaporust. So I'm probably going to go pick up that evaporust later today, but I realised that this section back here is separate from this one. You can see a little line along there. And according to the internet, I should just be able to knock it out. Should be. It's definitely moving, but very, very slowly. Maybe if I mount it on the corner of the table, I can get a clamp on either side. And my second genius idea was to use some solid aluminium bar as a drift rather than wood, because, well, this one's probably a bit small. Let's see if I've got a larger diameter. All right, just long enough. Look at that. Don't know whether it was aluminium or letting it soak for a minute, but that's good. That is really corroded. It almost looks like it snapped along here. Huh. I don't know if you can see this. Looks like there was some hardened metal tube or something. I don't know. Not sure what happened, but stay in focus. Does not look healthy, but I think it's self-serviceable. Let's see if this gets us any closer to being able to get this all the way in. No, it's still hitting something. Well, it's hitting a lot of wood from the old hammer that was in there. There's, yeah, a ton of crud back here. Let me get a wide brush. Ugh. So some of that was definitely the wood from the back of this ball peen hammer that I was using as a drift, but a lot of it was just built up sort of rust. Hopefully, it's still binding on something. I mean, I've always assumed it was binding on the back, but maybe it's binding on the front, because it was stored like this. You can see here, you've got the machining marks from the lathe, and there's some pitting here from where it was exposed. Maybe just that pitting. I mean, rust does expand the metal. Maybe that's where it's binding. I don't know. Seem to feel if I can feel like a lip or something that would be binding on back here. It's definitely really rusty in the back. So I went to the store and I couldn't find any evapor rust. So I've got some on order from Amazon. And I thought I'd use some time to try and work out why this guy isn't going in. I thought it was rust in here. I've hit it with a bunch of, wires and brushes, and the ball looks super clean in there. Let's see if I can get you Nice shot. Which way are you facing? There you go. It's hard to see, but that's actually really clean. So then I spent some time just wire wheeling this and thinking that maybe it was the buildup of rust around here from where it was left exposed that caused the metal to swell out here, but I don't think that's it. I think I have found the problem though. I think this guy is bent. You can see the circumferential machining marks from where this was turned on a lathe, but along here, I don't know if you can see, there is some striations going in this direction, a shiny spot right here. And I think this guy is bent. See if I can zoom in a little closer. Don't know if you can see that, but yeah. Just along here. So I don't have any precision sort of straight edges, but even with this small framing level, you can see it's flat all the way up until that point. If I can get you in focus, which way is focus? But there's a gap at the back. Sorry, I'll just focus back out here. Yeah, so flat up until that shiny spot, and then it's bent. I think the way to fix this bend is going to require things that I don't have. It's going to require some heat and some pressing. Yeah, I mean, even just looking at it now with my just naked eye, it looks bent, but I could just be telling myself that. I think what's happened is it's been up in here, someone's put some force down here, and it's bent. Maybe I could get a bottle jack under here and have this down real tight and try and bend it back, but I'm going to ponder on that for a little bit. I'm going to call this an episode, and hopefully for the next video I've worked out how to get this bend out. The evaporust will have arrived, and we'll get some more progress on the restoration of this vise. Until then, see ya.